You know when you're in the cinema and there are people near you that are talking really loudly, really audibly, and you're wondering whether they're gonna shut up when the film starts, because it's like the trailers. During the trailers, they're still talking. I mean, fair enough. But every time I go see a movie and hear one of these people talking, I always start getting worried. Oh no, they're not gonna shut up when the film starts. I'm gonna have to say something. Almost part of me wishes that they keep talking just so I have the excuse to say hey, shut the fuck up! I guess you can say that I'm not really having much faith in humanity there, but there are just some people who just talk at a certain volume, and you can just tell they really want to be heard. They want everyone around them to hear what they're saying, and it's just really annoying. And you're always just like, I'm here to watch a film. This is not about you. This is about a fucking movie. Shut the fuck up. This is Batcho with another movie review for you. Today's movie is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
We'll all fly away together into the forever.
A very relevant movie for you today. It's hot off the press. So in case you don't know, this is the latest Marvel Studios movie. There have been two other previous Guardians of the Galaxy films, both directed by James Gunn, who returns for this one. Like a lot of people, I'm quite done with Marvel. I've been very positive on some of their recent projects, but overall, Phase 4, whatever they call it, has been pretty shit. I feel like they've overstayed their welcome within the cinema landscape, and there needs to be something fresh and new to replace it. Superhero movies have been sitting at the top of the Hollywood pyramid for years now, and it needs to end. I'd say the average down-to-earth common man or common woman is pretty much sick of these films, and for good reason, because we have quite evidently been overexposed to this format of film. The amount of influence that Disney has over the blockbuster landscape is unhealthy. It all needs a big shake-up. So yeah, I'm pretty much done with all this Marvel stuff. I do think I have been really positive about some of their recent projects again. I was really positive about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and WandaVision, even though they both did leave a lot to be desired. I don't plan on watching any more of these films, but I did always tell myself that I'd watch Guardians 3, so this hopefully will be the last one. The Guardians of the Galaxy movies have always been some of the strongest entries in the MCU, and James Gunn is one of the best directors to work with the studio. I wouldn't really deem any particular Marvel film to be great, but Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is probably the closest one for me. Maybe not so much as a blockbuster, but more so this weird, wacky indie film. It's the most personal seeming film of the entire MCU, has the best character development. Guardians 1 was quite good, but still limited to the Marvel format. But with Guardians 2, James Gunn seemed to have a lot more creative control, and not many people, like all the Marvel fans, didn't like it so much, but I fucking loved it. It just felt like its own fucking thing. So yeah, Guardians 2 got me strongly invested with this group of characters, which is probably the main reason why I saw this new film. And I'll say that this new third film is a good movie. However, the staleness of the MCU in terms of where that's at right now did affect my experience. It's got some unique aspects to it, but there are also a lot of conventions and tropes that remind you that it is indeed a Marvel film. It does have that same Marvel feel to it that we've been experiencing for like 20 years now. All of these big CGI battles that I'm more than done with. Quite a lot of that stale Marvel stuff is still present, and it's quite difficult to not see it at this point. And also, like most other big, bombastic, overindulgent action films, this is over 2 hours long. It is a big bloated son of a bitch, and I did feel the length at a few instances. I can't be expected to still enjoy the same shit over and over again. There's a lot of jokes, a lot of postmodern jokes. Some of them are admittedly funny. There are some good jokes in here, but there are also ones that don't land so much, that aren't so big, epic funny. No. It's a weird mix of idiosyncratic James Gunn humour as well as obligatory Marvel humour. We have a new villain who's portrayed fairly well by the actor who plays him. He's okay. They do try and make him feel distinct and fresh. Ultimately though, he's this big arsehole. He has this big plan that involves killing thousands or billions of people. Just Marvel, 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 fucking Marvel everywhere. I'm sick of this shit as much as Neo and the boys are all sick of that shitty fucking food they eat outside the Matrix. The character Adam, who's this golden guy played by Will Poulter, I think his name is, who is the eyebrow kid that everyone knows. That character in particular felt unnecessary. His whole thing just didn't need to be in this film. Even though I did like how they portrayed him, because he's essentially this godlike person who's super strong and can fly. And the actor plays him like this whimsical, posh and pampered rich boy. And I did find all that amusing, but ultimately he does not need to be in this film. I know why he's in this film, because he's like a significant character in the comics, and they probably probably told James Gunn that he had to put him in there. They teased him in a post-credit scene in Guardians 2, and it's like, oh my god, it's Adam, and all the fans were like, oh, I can't wait to see him. So his involvement in this feels completely obligatory. But again, he was a fun and silly character. Seeing as though I'm really rooting for James Gunn when I'm watching these films, I do wish he'd put a bit more attention into the script or the plot. He does a lot of good stuff with the character writing, but he just kind of lets the plot fall by the wayside. And it ends up being this silly unfolding of events, and you do wish that the same amount of care and effort that went into the character writing went into the plot. Like, for however stylistically shot Sam Raimi's Multiverse of Madness film was, the plot was just like, he did nothing with that. Also, this film has numerous aspect ratio changes when it switches to IMAX for a big action set piece. A lot of big Hollywood films do this, but the good ones do it in a way where you don't notice. But this film had some of the most disgustingly noticeable switches that I've ever seen, and there are so many of them as well, and every time you pick up on it, and it's so distracting because it happens every time a big action set piece is about to start, which was kind of an indicator to me that it would get a bit boring, because the action set pieces were the least interesting aspect of this movie to me. I'm really just here for the wacky visuals and the character shit, to be fair. Which brings me on to some more positive attributes to this film.
Where we came from.
Again, I like James Gunn, I like the way he does things. He always adds a little bit of flair to these Marvel films. He's also quite a risque director. He's made a lot of edgy films, and he tries to squeeze in as much edgy shit as he can into this film as well. As much edgy shit as the studio would let him. Peter Quill uses the word fuck. I think that's the first fuck in the entire MCU. There's also a joke about meth dealers. I guess spoilers, but there's a bit where Rocket uses his claws to really fuck up the main villain's face, and that was filmed really shockingly. For this film, at least. James Gunn did as much as he could to make that as graphic as possible, and it was a really cool, fairly impactful bit. Then at the end you get an up-close look at the fucked up villain's face, and it's really quite gory for a 12A or whatever. Also, I'm pretty sure that there's a ton of penis and vagina imagery in this film. If you remember the big monster at the start of Guardians 2, that was essentially just a big penis. Like, I don't know how no one else noticed that, but he just snuck that in there. And there's a whole sequence in this film that takes place on this big organic space station. It's like this weird organically grown space station all made out of flesh, and it's so gross and weird, so it makes things a little bit more distinct in terms of the visuals. With Guardians 2 and 3, I do think James Gunn has done a good job at creating these weird fucked up looking sets that really stick out in your memory. At the very least, they're not generic, they come from someone's actual imagination. So yeah, it's disgusting. They're like weird fleshy plants with like big cyst looking things in them. It's horrible, but it's cool. That's just a little detail I appreciate because it's made by James Gunn. Excluding the set that was literally just a fucking normal American suburb, but besides that, it was good.
Subscribe!
Obviously, these Guardians films are also known for their soundtracks, and this has another pretty badass soundtrack that I imagine I'll be listening to in the future. Most notably was the use of the Radiohead song Creep at the beginning of the film. Rocket is the one listening to it, and it really fits his character and his demeanour and how he is in the scene. And it's a good opening scene because it just follows him getting up and walking around, seeing all the other Guardians doing just normal mundane activities really, as Rocket just plods along like, yeah, how's everyone doing, and all this with his head down. It's shot in a way that mimics a continuous shot where it just moves between all of the Guardians and shows like what they're all doing, all the while keeping most of the focus on Rocket. And it's a good contrast to the opening of Guardians 2, which was a similar shot, which was this upbeat, colourful action scene where Groot was dancing to Mr. Blue Sky. It's a complete opposite tone, complete opposite scene, but the same sort of shot that just hovers around, shows you what all the characters are up to, what their dynamics like. The Guardians 2 opening had this really upbeat song, whilst Guardians 3 had a much more dour and like dreary song. It's just another good song usage in this series, and it was an artistic way of reintroducing all of these characters. Speaking of sad Rocket, this film is heavily focused on his backstory, which is the best part about it, and I was happy to see how much time they devoted to that. So much of this film was comprised of flashbacks to Rocket's origin story. I think that was the priority thing that James Gunn wanted to do with this third film, was just establish all of this past stuff with Rocket. It was probably one of the best directions you could have gone in with these characters. Rocket spends most of this film unconscious, so it did keep cutting back, and even though the pacing did get a little bit wonky at times, I still overall was appreciative of it going in that direction, because without that it would really just be another Marvel plotline. I can see a lot of Marvel fans getting upset that Rocket is unconscious for most of the film, but like, fuck you, it's important to the central core of the story. So yeah, this is actually something unique and interesting, like an actual direction, an artistic direction. I also enjoyed Peter Quill's story in this, and he had some very emotional scenes. Yeah, Chris Pratt tried his best to act those. He's got limited range, but he tried his best. I wasn't always sold. I do really like Star-Lord's character, and for the most part I do think Chris Pratt does a good job. He has a very tragic story, and I don't think Chris Pratt can always deliver that caliber of performance to sell that tragedy. Honestly, the best moments of the film were just like these individual character moments. There was a bit where Drax had to like win the trust of these kids, and he went into dad mode, and that was really sweet. Nebula has also become a really interesting character. Remember in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, I thought, God, she is such a fucking lame character. She's so over the top and stupid. But since then, James Gunn has kind of taken those aspects about her character and made them like kind of into a joke, or played it to the film's advantage, where she's just this crazily psychotic bitch, and it ceases to be this melodramatic generic action movie trope and starts being a weird James Gunn idiosyncrasy. She's just so quick to go full schizo mode on anyone, and I love how all of the Guardians are always swearing at each other and calling each other dickhead and arsehole all the time. Finally, one more positive. Even though I was bitching before about how boring and shit the action scenes were, there was one action set piece, one action sequence that I did like, and it was the one in the hallway near the end where all of the Guardians, all the characters are there. And again, it kind of mimics the style of a continuous shot as the camera kind of swivels around all of the characters as they like fight these weird creatures. It's similar to that scene in the first Avengers film where it keeps transitioning between all the characters, vibrantly showcasing all of their abilities in a badass way. I enjoyed that bit. Okay, that's that. I don't know exactly where I stand with this film, because it could always change. I've just seen the fucking thing. With Guardians 2, I didn't like fall in love with that film immediately. I didn't walk out of that like, oh my god, that's my favourite Marvel film. I just thought, hey, that was pretty good. Then like, after a bit of time thinking about it and go, oh yeah, that was really heartfelt. Oh, that was a really touching moment. I grew to love it. That's kind of how it works with me. I can't just love a film immediately sometimes. But I don't really think I'll love this film. I think it's just alright. It's got a lot of decent stuff in it, a lot of stale shit as well. It's just too early to tell where this will rank in my mind overall, but who cares? I do think it's better than one. It's got more unique weird shit than that one did. This should really be the final Guardians film. I don't know if it will be. I really want it to be. They fucking should just end it here. I keep getting the urge to say that this film wrapped things up. It wrapped the trilogy up really nicely, but I don't know if this is actually the end. That's the thing. For a lot of these characters, we're robbed of proper closure because they always just want to string it out a little bit more. But really, overall, this should just be it. It should just be kaput now. Done. Over. I mean, really, it's the same for the whole fucking MCU. Like, it just should stop. It just should end now. Die gracefully. Well, it's too late for that, but yeah, just enough. Anyway, there you have it. There was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 reviewed for you by none other than Batcho. So I've been mildly critical of a Marvel film, hence I'll probably start getting gaslighted by a bunch of comic book fans saying that, oh, I don't enjoy anything. Oh, are any movies you actually like? Are you positive about anything? There's that sort of shit. Oh my god, Batcho, you're crazy how cynical you are. You're such a critical, oh, you're so brutal. Oh no, I just fucking got my eyes open. I ain't got my head up my ass. Get off the stage, you disgusting fat fuck. 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 Get off the stage, you disgusting fat fuck.